Hey everyone, welcome to the third episode of the World Games Film Room. Today we're looking at Australia versus Colombia, which was the third pool play match in the other pool, Pool B. Both teams already qualified, they both won their first two games, but this game did matter for seeding and both teams played pretty hard. It was an interesting game to look at, so we'll get right into it. After not a lot of upfield momentum for Australia, Alex Gans sits out the disc just a bit too far ahead of Cat Phillips. Jonathan Cantor gets a few steps on Mish Phillips, recognising the gender mismatch due to Australian efforts to poach the open side. Andres Ramirez's deep positioning puts Alex Shepard in the right space to switch on and get to the disc ahead of Cantor. Not that Cantor would get there anyway. This is a very hard deep shot and not one that I would recommend taking on. We've got not a lot of angle to work with, and Cantor has to track the disc over one shoulder and then switch to get the disc with the other, and that changeover slows him down. Kiao O puts up a speculative deep shot, the receiver is already acres deep and Georgia Eagan Griffiths has to turn around and come back under to grab the disc. She manages to get a hand to it but can't quite bring it down. It's a poor decision from O.
After Australia's zone is blown wide open by the throw over the top, Rob Andrews does well as the deep to make the huck to Hock Jimenez look scary, whilst putting pressure on the shorter pass to Simon Ramirez as well. Andres Ramirez is unable to find either option before fumbling the disc whilst changing grip.
Tom Tullett is forced by Alexander Ford to put the disc out wide and bend it towards Phillips. Phillips was almost able to grab it inbounds, but it looks like her last ground contact is probably on the line. A similar story to the last turnover, due to good pressure on the mark, Tullett's choice of a tricky round break leads to a disc placed a little too wide.
Tullett raises the nose of the disc on the throw, and that slows the disc down and makes it fade IO more quickly. The disc needs a little bit more OI edge to hit the target.
After a stoppage, Manu has the disc on the sideline. She looks to already be at stall 5 with no one very free when the disc is checked back in, so this is already a very tricky situation. There's great synergy from the Australians going full denial with a very extreme no around force and stopping the upline on the cutters around the disc. Ford is more free to the backfield, so cuts for the around. The problem is the force is making the around backhand very tricky, so Manu looks for an inside flick instead. This flick is behind the receiver and Tullett steals the disc away. I do think Manu should attempt to hit this around instead, even though the stall must be getting close to 10. Ford's cut is sensible, but kinda lacks the killer instinct I'd think Manu, Valeria or Gina would bring to the situation. Tullett is definitely leaving the door open for a very shallow upline for a dish pass. I think given the stall, Ford should take this route instead and work hard with his legs to give Manu something throwable. There's a lot I like about this move. Apprentice picks up the dish from Tullett. This pass from Tullett is a nice way to continue the flow, and you see Australia take these dishes often, even when the disc is already in the hands of a high-level thrower like Tullett. Jimena Montaña's marking strategy to be very aggressively taking away swings and forcing a mark up the line is really exploited when you get an under hit between the thrower and the dump, because this pop pass is just always on. It's the perfect time for Apprentice to look for the end zone because her momentum and vision is heading in that direction. Rob Andrews starts his cut to the corner as Tullett throws the disc and gets a shoulder ahead of Simon Ramirez early. Simon knows that this foot race is already lost, so he's looking for help and finds Hock Jimenez just in time. Jimenez and Ramirez switch very well and neither attacker is left with much separation. Apprentice makes a poor decision and puts up the disc, and I'm not sure if the idea is for Andrews or Sam McGuckin to receive this in the back corner, or if it's an overshot throw to Andrews in the front corner. Either way, it ends up as a turn and the Colombians run the disc back in. This is a pretty classic example of a poach D as an active cutter invades defender enemy territory. Rob Andrews has stepped a long way off Jimenez, probably rightly thinking it's not very likely Maria Ferrero will be able to find a shot to the back corner from this position.
Gina's cut passes through both Saliu's and Andrews' territory, but Andrews is able to pick up the cut because he believes his mark is inactive, so he is surveying the field to check where he can help out.
I think it's admirable by Georgia Eagan Griffiths to not call a pick here, and it pays off when Andrews comes across and gets the D. A pin perfect throw from Monji here would probably be a score and end the game, but on balance the decision to put up this throw isn't a good one. Andrews converts this break in style and a clean O point wins the game for Colombia. So what's the takeaways from this game? First, you have to recognise the context, right? At this point, both Australia and Colombia have qualified for semis. It certainly feels like both teams are trying hard to win the game, but maybe the top players played slightly less points than usual, and maybe some players have an extra gear. A key point of note is that there were far fewer turnovers in this game than in the Germany games. In this game there were just 9 turnovers, 5 for Australia and 4 for Colombia. But in the Germany-Canada game there were 19 turnovers, and in the Germany-USA game there were 29 turnovers. In this game and throughout the pool play games, Australia and Colombia seem to have less chemistry issues and miscommunication turns than the US. Perhaps that's due to better preparation, perhaps that's down to more clearly split O-lines and D-lines. Ultiworld's analysis showed that Colombia had the best performing offense and the poorest performing defense of the top 4 World Games teams. A few extra things to note: I thought that the Australians did really well using small little pop pass backhands. Frequently Colombian dump defenders would get burnt by not adjusting quickly enough from their aggressive dump denying positioning to stop this option. You'd think that the Colombians would be better than anyone at seeing the value of shutting down this option. 2 players who really stood out were Rob Andrews and Jonathan Cantor. Andrews was the most dominant deep receiver at the event, but was solid all over the field too, and Cantor was always there to keep the offense flowing. I was so impressed with the volume of tricky catches he made across the whole tournament. He in fact went down as the only player across all 112 athletes to be credited with a turnover-free tournament. The final thing is, in this game and over the whole tournament, Colombia played the best hex offense we've ever seen, and it's really not that close. Frequently they'd fill up whole stretches of the field with 0-second passes and score seemingly with complete disregard for the defense. It was beautiful to watch. Thanks for watching. We've already got more episodes of this series on Patreon. Check them out with the link in the description. See you next time for the semi-finals.
The game for Colombia. They will take the top seed to face the North Americans, and the Aussies will have to play against the Germans.